I would say one thing, I would say get your hands dirty, start messing around with smart contracts. I would say
Hmm.
go to Ethereum, go to Bitcoin, start tooling around with new languages, Solidity, for example, writing smart contracts, get your hands dirty, see what you can do because in true software fashion, with smart contracts, you're God. You can make anything happen. You can make terrible things happen. You can lose all your money, but it's fun.
The Uncle Gold Podcast.
Five, four, three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Uncle Gold Podcast. My name is Borna. Welcome to the show where we find the gold in life and bring on guests where we talk about interesting topics like technology, improving your life, mindset, business, and all sorts of other things that might help you improve your life. And today we have a special guest on. She is the CEO and founder of Origin Chain Networks. She holds a chair in the Blockchain Ireland startup group. And I'm super excited to welcome her to the Uncle Gold Podcast. Fiona Delaney, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Borna. I'm really happy to be here. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this talk because ever since we met on the GMIT, I kind of been following your work, and I think you're going in a great direction. And one of the main topics that we're going to talk about today is blockchain and technologies that are related to it, and how it's all kind of seeping into the culture, and how blockchain is changing the world. So yeah, maybe before we start with that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you kind of get to this point where you're doing all of this? That's kind of a brand new technology when you look at it from that perspective. How did you get there?
Well, I was born, and no, well, I'm a software developer, software engineer. And I kind of retrained after I had my kids. I used to work in the arts. I worked in film, and I had an artistic practice, visual practice, and I was somewhat successful. I exhibited, across Europe, in South America, various different places, and I'm married to a writer. So the two of us had this lovely, um, not very profitable, but very rewarding cultural existence, Then we had our kids, banking crisis happened, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I really feel like somebody has to get paid here.
Yeah.
So I retrained. So I would have, I worked a lot in film, I worked in TV, independent TV production. I was probably what you would consider an advanced software user.
Hmm.
So, looking at lens-based technologies and video editing or image editing, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And I could really start to see what was so exciting about not so much CGI, but looking at gaming, video gaming, and the culture around that, cultural expression, identities, communities being formed and forged. I was really quite interested in what was happening in online communities. And I thought, well, I'm gonna dip into this, plug into this a little bit.
Yeah.
So I did a master's in computing and really, really enjoyed software development.
Hmm.
Honestly, the key for me, I don't think I'm some kind of genius who can go from zero to hero, but I was originally, multilingual. I speak many different languages. My original degree was in languages, and I think that was the key for me, just having this innate understanding of grammar, ontology, semantics, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. That really made the difference to make me able to accelerate my learning.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was, building websites, and I particularly focused on performance as an attribute of user experience, and really began to look at um, performance and speed as an expression of excellence.
Hmm.
So I got really into the nitty gritty of that side of things. And then I ended up moving on to do a master's in advanced software development. And that involved engineering and architecture and some exciting things, a lot of internet working. things were beginning to happen around, creating, working with drones and
Hmm.
3D printing, and
Oh
starting
wow.
to look at, it was a toss up for me whether I was going to do my thesis in convoluted neural networks and image creation, or this kind of new thing that had already emerged. I mean, I was doing this, after Satoshi Nakamoto's peer-to-peer
Hmm.
cash kind of thing. But I was really, really interested in the community side of it.
Hmm.
So it had been difficult. It was a personal challenge for me to turn my back on my art career and to move more towards what I saw as a more mainstream industrial type career. And so I decided I would have been taking a risk of going backwards by going the CNN neural network way. And
Hmm.
so I really embraced what was happening with blockchain, and started to see not the dark web online communities, which totally exist, and digital cash or any kind of digital currency can be traded there. But I started to see the purpose of those kind of online businesses, and they are really the pathways forward for our
Hmm.
completely global communities now. There's so much to learn, and if we don't learn from that, we're cutting off our own hands, really,
Yeah.
by not, these communities are the ones who paved the way.
Hmm.
And all of the indicators are there as to how new communities, new markets, new, how would you say? I mean, I want to say cultures. Like, there are brand
Hmm.
new
Hmm.
cultures born on the internet. That challenge for sure, but they also bring an awful lot. And these are human connected um, entities, or concepts, or realities now,
Hmm.
um, and so how to um, how to bridge this gap of trust where things are only online,
Hmm.
whether it's communicating between those communities or trading between
Yeah.
individuals who don't know where each other are in the world. um, uh, Somebody's selling something, somebody's buying something. Let's keep it simple,
Hmm. Hmm.
transactional. How can we improve or enhance this trust in what is being traded? And that doesn't have to be on the dark web, and it doesn't have to be on the blockchain. Everybody can remember their first time buying something from JD, going, "Is this ever going to arrive? What, is it going to be too small or too big?" Or, everybody remembers that. So that, like, visceral sense of, am I doing the right thing here in online business? That we can do something for that with this idea of
Hmm.
blockchain or distributed ledger technology, where we can create immutable pathways and immutable sets of attributes or sets of flags within a bounded context, which could be an e-commerce type context, um, that will give us the information that we need, that we can trust.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's encapsulated in this idea of zero knowledge proof. There's a little more technicality happening in the background, but it's that idea that essentially this has been validated. This person is a seller of
Shoes.
bikinis
Yeah.
or whatever, shoes, and that I'm gonna get what I have ordered. And if I
Hmm.
if I don't like it, or if it doesn't fit me, or if it's not what I wanted, I can send it back, and I will either get my money back or get my replacement, or whatever the
Hmm.
terms of your
Hmm.
deal are, right? And then you get into this, which, as a creative person, this is so exciting for me. You can create the terms of your own agreement. It doesn't just have to be JD with the e-commerce website and all the thousands of pages of terms and agreements that are their terms that you just
Yeah.
tick the box of. With
Accept.
smart contracts, yeah, you can, with smart contracts and a little bit of know-how, and we're moving to a place now where that gets easier and easier and easier. You can create your own terms of contract.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. That's I think that's an amazing feature. And something that we haven't seen yet. And I feel that we're at the start of it right now, where people are starting to pay more attention to these smart contracts. And I personally believe that in like 20 years, everything will be on smart contracts, basically from
Or
marriage
at least
to buying
have
a house.
at least have the choice, you know? I mean, if there's an off the shelf thing, I'm like, yeah, listen, I'm always about the performance, always like
Mhm,
fast, simple, efficient, lightweight.
mhm,
You know, like I'm really still, even in blockchain land, I'm always pushing those non-functional requirements because they define the user experience and they are absolutely key to not just that, you know, momentary experience, because that interface experience is one thing. Essentially, when you get your product that you've already selected and it's the right thing, that is the trade experience. You
mhm,
know, that's the trading experience. The technology part is the interface that can ameliorate, or, you know, those abandoned shopping cart thing. That's a
mhm,
real
mhm.
phenomenon. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want that. um, and but this idea of smart contracts and everything comes closer to what the human interactions have traditionally been. Like,
Mhm,
you know, going to the mart with, I never went to the mart with my grandfather. Let's say going with my uncle and he's selling or buying a cow or a bull or something like that. You know, the terms of the agreement are made on the day.
yeah.
That's a human interface deal. You know, it's kind of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that
Shake the hand.
you
Yeah.
can, yeah, you can. So if you're you as the user in this instance on this international, you know, network, you can be a creator of smart contracts. You can help to co-create because it's a co-creation. You can't force anybody into a smart contract or
Mhm,
force
mhm,
anybody into a trade, but you can co-create and co-define the terms of what it is that you're doing.
mhm, mhm.
And the course in, like, uh, you know, switching from a formal banking model into a cryptocurrency model, uh, the bank is a lovely, highly insured interface that will safeguard your money and will tell you if somebody's, you know, hacking your account. Nobody is going to tell you if your wallet is being hacked, your crypto wallet's being
Yeah,
hacked.
yeah.
You'll just either watch it as it's drained, or you know, randomly you're getting money in it or cryptocurrency in it, which never happened to me. But I mean, if it can randomly, if you can randomly lose it, you know, it can randomly
Mhm,
arrive. So you're responsible for everything, and that is a daunting step. It is like becoming an entrepreneur,
mhm,
you
mhm.
know, entering into this because of the phase that we're in blockchain and DLT. We're kind of at an early phase. The key here to what is blockchain and what's happening in these decentralized businesses is that now blockchain and DLT affords us the opportunity to co-create business terms in a multi-party system.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the Uncle Gold podcast. If you want to support this whole project, make sure you go to the second channel called Uncle Gold Podcast Clips. There I create short form videos with the best topics from the interviews that I do on the main channel. You get their videos daily. They're separated nicely into playlists so you can choose the topic that you want to watch most. And now let's go back to the video.
So you can co-create the bit that you are responsible for or that you are a stakeholder in,
Mhm,
and you can trust that you have visibility over all those other terms um, where it has been agreed that that is a viable thing, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
if we expand it out from, instead of me buying shoes from borna.com, when we now, let's say I'm a vegan and I don't want to buy leather shoes and I want a proof in some way that Borna is not selling leather shoes, he's selling recycled shoes from marine plastic or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I want some kind of proof or some certificate or some kind of way of validating that that's the type of product, not just your say so.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
want some kind of verification or validation that that's what you're buying and that's what you're selling me, and you want to know, because you take such care about marine plastic and environmentalism, you want to know what happens to your shoes at their end of life. You want to know that me as the consumer didn't just chuck my shoes in the sea at their end, that I have maybe sent them back to you for recycling, or sent them, to my local recycle center, and that, there's some kind of QR code maybe on the sole of the shoes that can be scanned at the recycle center, and we can see, and your whole supply chain loop is kind of closed, and we can all feel super good about ourselves recycling Pacific garbage patch. So there's a lot going on in that example. But this idea of incorporating environmentalism into this whole system view, we are not used to that. When we buy our food, we go into the supermarket. The supermarket is sort of like the Disneyland of food. You go in, the shelves are never empty. Right? They might be full of tomato soup, but they will never be empty. Everything is fresh and within its sell-by date. All of the fruit and vegetable has been frozen. Some of it has been ripened on the seas. It doesn't taste the way we remember necessarily it tasted, like an apple used to taste, but we have very full shelves, and we have, we can go in there, and we live in Europe, so we have access to quality assured, very safe and affordable food. So we are lucky. However, we don't know where our food comes from. It's all branded that, it's a photo of a farmer, and it's a farmer like this. Like this. Raised this chicken, this cow, this pig, whatever it is that you're buying. And we're trusting the brands, and we're trusting the supermarkets. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. I think what we have is this amazing system. It's kind of just in time supply and logistics. But the problem is that entire system is built on wasting food. So as food product reaches its sell-by date, or its the best before date, or whatever is current in wherever you are, they remove the product from the shelves, and they, for the most part, they dump it. So
fortunately,
that brings me into what we're doing in our company. So not to let you try and stitch all this together. So my company is called Origin Chain Networks, and we work with the farming community. Essentially, we're a digital transformation company. Like, we started off as a blockchain company. Because I'm a specialist in that technology, and looking for what entry points into this multi-party system, which is the farm to fork food system, to try to gain a foothold, I would say, in the market, to gain relevance, and to gain practical, to bring value to the market. The consumer was never really our end aim. It was really, we wanted to protect the rights of the farming community, and to begin to see them as, let's say, that word husbandry, which is like farming, right? So they're husbanding their farm. They're farming their farm, but they're also farming their data, and that really important data, not the existing quality assurance schemes, because we can't compete with the government licenses, that we can't compete with that, but we can begin to explore and add value and start to measure in a very connected way. We call it agriculture 4.0, utilizing ubiquitous computing to enable farmers to jump on board digital transformation, and to test with us, create with us new opportunities where they can create products that are tradable and valuable, perhaps on the carbon marketplace, perhaps as data banks or data, data sources of real-time information about what's happening on the farm. We take this approach that they're side-by-side commercial farming and measuring the environmental impact cost. We can see that farming is extractive, taking nitrogen from the soil, converting it, carbon, nitrogen, all these things, these chemicals, and converting it into nutrition, which we then eat. It is an extractive process. And there is a side-by-side impact on the environment that is the environmental cost of farming anywhere in the world, absolutely anywhere in the world. So in arid lands, you need to add more water. It's a big cost to add water, perhaps reduce temperatures. In temperate zones, like Ireland is a temperate zone, we have these grass-fed systems whereby, in fact, environmentally speaking, it is one of the lowest cost ways of producing meat-based protein, because cows can be outside, or goats can be outside, or sheep can be outside. They don't need to be in sheds, and they have free roaming land, essentially, which is atypical in industrial farming.
Yeah, the whole world, basically.
Yeah, so, but similar to New Zealand. So on opposite sides of the world, we have very similar means of farming. And there are places in Europe, like Northern France, the UK, where similar systems exist. And so we're building systems for that. And we link together. At the moment, we're exploring a product line or a service line that looks at using Earth observation data, so satellite images, to create a reputation, an independently verified reputation system for the self-reported data coming from the farms. We have a ways to go with that.
Yeah, so what would that mean for the farmer? He would represent his data to the government or to the supply chain, where people can see that he authentically grew his, let's say, carrots or his cows on his farm, or how would it work?
At the moment, what we're doing is working with the farmers to find the best way for them to gather their data, their field data, and to report it, and they report it to us. So at the moment, farmers are essentially co-creating with us new types of data products, which, as co-creators, they can have a share in, not just their own data, but actually we are exploring a cooperative business model where the original farmers who are involved in co-creating these types of products become beneficiaries of. So it's a kind of a crowdsourcing model, because it's really important that it's relevant, and not only that, we recognize that. So there's a couple of things. So I haven't fully answered your last question, and I'm already talking about something else. So let me clarify. What we're trying to do is work with farmers to help them self-report this peripheral data. They're already managing their commercial farming reporting, and that is licensed, and it's through the government, and that is linked with Europe, because we're based in Europe, right? So the European Commission oversees that. Interestingly enough, in Europe, with the Green Deal and this idea of moving forward, that Industry 4.0 or Agriculture 4.0 must also be cognizant of environmental impact. It's not clear yet what degree and quite how that reporting must take place.
Okay.
So Europe, those elements are undefined as yet. But we do know that climate change is a significant push factor.
Yeah.
And how to, what we're doing can't resolve climate change, but what we can do is assert methods or build services, software services that can report measured data, real-time field data. The issue between the public administration right across Europe and the farming community, that at the moment that relationship is adversarial. farmers report, they are audited, and they are assumed to be trying to trick it out. Right. So that is the auditing process.
Okay.
But there are in Ireland, there are farm advisors to support the farmers. There's a whole system set up to support the commercial farming practice reporting. On the other side, the impact side, there's the Environmental Protection Agency, which doesn't necessarily audit farmers, but is tasked with, let's say, measuring water quality.
Okay.
Farmers can be fined for pollution events if it can be traced back to a farmer or a farm. But the pollution may not become apparent until, let's say, the river reaches the sea, at which point, how many farmlands has it passed through?
Yeah.
Right. So there are difficulties there. And also that's like a criminal investigation. So we're not trying to measure criminality, or we're not trying to measure pollution. Like farmers, they make an agreement that they're not going to pollute the land, and we are going to help them to say we haven't polluted the land, and this is how we can share that information with you, because we are gathering data daily or weekly or monthly or whatever basis, whatever the thing being tested is, and they can create an assurance pathway for themselves as a farmer, for their land that they are custodians of, and that is related to the product derived from that land. So
and I always think too, if other farmers also have that data, then they can learn from it, right? Because if I see that you're doing something on your farm that's environmentally friendly, I might be incentivized to do it on my farm as well, just by looking at the data, right?
So yeah, I mean, peer-to-peer, that is, I would say that is a really strong component of farming communities everywhere. There's a reason why farming communities essentially are set up as cooperatives, because they work together and help each other out, and are always, one person is like an early adopter of, let's say, a new tractor or a new whatever, and then their mates see it and go, oh, I want that too. So yeah, in the farming community, that's not necessarily an effect of what it is that we're doing, but that is the reality of the farming community. That is the culture within it. And that is something that we are seeking to leverage with this idea of digital transformation and moving forward, because farmers are excellent farmers, and they're custodians of the land. What they're not doing, like me, is sitting 6 hours a day, they're not doing that. They are not doing that, and they don't have the time out of their lives to that's, so what we need to do is cooperate. I have a certain set of skills, they have a whole certain enterprise. Together we can cooperate, whether it's one farmer or different types of farmers. We can cooperate to help provide this pathway where, and very importantly, farmers can become trusted agents of self-reported data, which is about impact. Because what the Environmental Protection Agency does not have are sufficient local advisors to work with farmers the way that Teagasc does. Teagasc is the Agricultural Advisory Service, and they have local farm advisors and farm advisory services where local farmers can find solutions for them in their locale, what's worked with other people, all that kind of thing. There is nothing like that in environmental terms, and actually we already know that's what works for the farming community. So that's what we need to do. The Environmental Protection Agency is certainly not quickly, is not going to be resourced to that extent. I would argue that that will never be enough.
Okay. Because
actually we don't need reporting once a year or twice a year. What we need is access to real-time data to be able, for ourselves, as citizens in this country, where all the rivers are, where all the boglands are, where, so we need this overview. And while we do have access to some oversight, there are some types of, let's say, pollution events or weather events or other external factors that can be established and examined through Earth observation, which is satellite-based imagery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're already using that for some services. What we haven't successfully done yet is to use it for real-time validation of community information or data, or validating on-farm information. So that's what we have embarked on, because we see it's really, really important to trust farmers, to farm in the right way. Like at the moment, we're already trusting them to do it because we're not measuring it, right? We say, you will farm in a way that doesn't pollute the land. Okay, then. Yes, I will do that. And so we're already trusting them.
Yeah.
But if we're going to replicate the quality assurance scheme, it's going to be audited and it's going to be contested. And so there are some aspects like the nitrogen derogation, or so you need to identify in advance every year how much nitrogen will be applied to your field, and that could include slurry. So we're talking about cow waste and all that. You need to calculate it, and you get an allowance based on the amount of livestock you have.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you're going to exceed it, you need to apply for a derogation in advance. If you exceed that, you will pay a fine at the end of the year. So this is relatively new in the last 3 to 4 years, and it is being quite successful, I would say. I'm sure it's a headache, because having to report data on things you never had to report on before is an admin thing. Yeah. But similarly, there are other things that, so farmers have to manage their hedgerows. There are regulations and directives around correct hedgerow management and wildlife protection. So farmers are already being tasked with these jobs, but there's no reporting on it. You can only report somebody if they've done it out of season, and then they might be fined. Might be. Yeah. That's not what we want. What we want is the real-time information, because these hedgerows are important, not just as field boundaries. They are important for biodiversity. In a land like Ireland, where farms are relatively small, the field boundaries are actually established peripheral habitats, which are full of multiple different native species most of the time, and are the habitat for various different types of wildlife, whether it's insects or foxes or rabbits, hares, pheasants, whatever. And they are an important aspect of peripheral habitat management. And peripheral habitats are indicators of the impact of not just commercial farming, but adverse weather events, rising temperatures.
Maybe society's impact on that as well.
Yeah. So that's a massive big conversation. Like these are really big things, but they're all set in the context of digital transformation. We are now able to view the world from satellites. We are now able to assess those images and identify field boundaries, peripheral habitats, commercial farming, farmhouses, all this kind of thing. We can see patterns over time, and we can make value judgments. Now, do you think farmers want to be the eyes in the sky, to have no input into those valuations? No, they don't. And nobody wants that, right? So what we're doing is creating a pathway where they can self-report from the field in time-based, seasonal-based information from their fields that becomes a record, their record, which we can supplement with validation from the sky, from Earth observation, and that's an independent source of information. And not only that, together, because they're providing this information, we can improve and enhance our analysis techniques from above. And together with the farming community, we can define these new methods, new packages, and create new types of product or new types of value, which is time-based assessment of peripheral habitats,
Yeah.
which is really, really important for
Mm.
knowing what happened through time.
Yeah. I feel I want to go back to smart contracts that you mentioned there, and also floods triggered an idea that I didn't have time to discuss on the presentation that we did for GMIT, which is basically, you know how governments issue funds for, let's say, earthquake or floods or some kind of natural disaster, and then it's hard to use those funds like aimed specifically at individual targets. They kind of try to do it more region based. I feel that when we start implementing blockchain, and let's say you have 1,000 farmers in a specific region that are using Origin Chain Network and they are reporting their data, and next month they're hit by a huge flood or tornado or whatever, the government could technically say, all right, you're hooked up to this network and you are in this region that we see from satellite images. These 25 farms and these 10 small farmers there should directly get this percentage of the funds because you're specifically in that region, which we can see and track. And in my mind, it can be like smart contract triggered. So if the weather reporting station reports to the app or the program that something happened to that region, the funds are automatically transferred to the wallets of the farmers where they get money that can help them. You know, at the start, it will probably be rough estimates or some kind of average per farm, but it could be implemented in a way where you don't have to wait for like months and months to get some funds for the region, but you could specifically target farmers that are specifically there, and you can see them 10 kilometers in that direction, 5 kilometers in that direction. These farmers need to receive that much money to help them, you know, kind of rebuild their farms or evacuate the cattle or, you know, like buy new machinery or repair buildings and things like that, by directly targeting them through using basically their own data that they were providing.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting because you're touching on a number of different things there. Yes, that is completely possible if you have an integrated software system that is integrated between public services, public administration, public sector, and those communities, which can either be regionally based or they could be connected through co-ops, right? So we mainly think about the food supply chain. Once farmers are licensed by the government, once product leaves the farm gate, it becomes part of the food chain.
Yeah.
And what's happening now is that because of ubiquitous computing or digital transformation across the sector and the demand for greater transparency into food supply chain, including environmental impact, we are seeing the dissolving of barriers between, let's say, primary, secondary, and tertiary industries. Mm-hmm. So they have been really quite clearly defined, I think, in the past. And there's been, you know, points where you know, logistics services, you know, comes to the farm gate, and you know, we don't really see it as all being connected. Now with this, the farm to fork movement, we can see integrated data being a requirement. Mm-hmm. So what you're talking about there is government intervention in disaster mode, and we have seen the massive shift globally in what has happened with government responses to, let's say, furloughing in the past couple of years with, you know, the extraordinary circumstances we find ourselves in now, and how governments intervened to essentially remove all barriers to receipt of furlough funding because the cost of auditing it is not worth the potential loss of misclaims, let's say. So decisions now, and those initial decisions were made, you know, they probably thought that would be like a temporary 3-month thing, or, you know, whatever those decisions were made and based on. But that accelerated access to funding, removing barriers like that, because the cost of individual audits is so great in time and in human oversight or algorithmic oversight, that it doesn't make sense to put them in there, particularly if what we're going to do, as happened with furlough payments, was a sort of baseline was defined regardless of what your income was. There's a baseline defined, and workers could sign up to receive it with very low barriers. So I think you're talking about that, and what is the greatest facilitator of that happening is that shift on the side of the public. It's a game-changing perspective shift on the part of public administration. So there was, I think in the 1990s, there was a shift in how, let's say, public sector administration saw their service users. They saw patients in the health system were clients. All of the language, I bet you even in prisons, they started calling prisoners clients of the prison system. So these kind of shifts are indicative of how services and policies regard the role and responsibility of public administration. And things like that. So here what we're talking about in the food system is something that butts up between, so we're an industry provider, we have the farming community who are individual business enterprises, essentially, right? So there's individual businesses, we're a business provider, a software service provider, essentially at the cutting edge of digital transformation in Europe. We receive our funding through Europe, we're R&D funding, we're ahead of the wave of essentially what is the pathway through food regulation, safety regulation, reporting regulation, and we are utilizing the mechanism afforded by distributed ledger technology. So this essentially, going back to our beginning conversation, reformats that sense of trust across the internet. And but what do we do with that? Do we buy shoes, or do we deliver emergency funding into an area so that they can create mitigation pathways at the soonest opportunity, if that is the right thing that needs to happen? So that constitutes massive policy shift and behavioral change on the part of public administration. So we're kind of in this mix of, like, one thing moving ahead, another thing moving ahead, and that is the requirement, essentially. That's the environment because it's one thing for one farmer to decide, you know what, I am going to document everything that I do on my mobile phone, and I am going to have the perfect record for all eternity, so that my children and my grandchildren will know what I did in the fields. So you've got that, right? And a single farmer could do that, and that would be a really interesting record, and it would probably help them with their record keeping. But unless there is a pathway to sharing that in an integrated way, which adds value by let's say that farmer decides to do that and convinces everybody else in the co-op to do the same thing, so that now we've got a region or an area, Tipperary co-op. All the farmers, dairy farmers in Tipperary, are now documenting for posterity how they are dealing with their peripheral habitats. That would be an amazing thing. That all of a sudden now that becomes really valuable to dairy Tipperary co-op, but also to the government. All of a sudden they've got this county in the middle of Ireland where they've got all of this data about peripheral habitat management, which is about carbon footprinting.
And it also becomes super valuable for the brand, if I can just jump in there, because if you're buying, let's say, a product from Tipperary, and you can also see the data farmers are reporting that they're doing everything as they should, then you automatically have more trust in the products that they're bringing to the supermarkets, right? Because then you can buy a product where it says grass fed, and you can literally check if the farmers did leave their cows on the fields, right? And you were like, okay, yes, they did. So now it's checked, it's confirmed, and you trust the butter from Tipperary more.
Yeah, but like imagine if what they're also doing is participating in um, wildlife surveys. So now we have ubiquitous information right across Tipperary about wild pheasant counts. Not that we would necessarily want to publish it because we don't want to have hunters coming here and destroying them, but so Birdwatch Ireland conduct bird surveys, and we would perhaps have a more complete record of nesting pairs,
Mm-hmm.
of wildlife that's at risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That will actually be tremendous because it will have a huge impact in the long term, because I feel that most of these effects you can't see overnight, but in, let's say, a 20-year span, you will see a huge effect. It will be like the compounding effect curve, where at the start it's like nothing happening, and then after a few years you can see a huge change.
Hey, if you love using YouTube, I recommend the free Chrome extension called TubeBuddy. It allows you to do some advanced keyword research, cut your publishing time in half, and also rank your videos higher in search. I use them when creating for all my 3 channels. They have a paid version as well, but I recommend starting with the free option for starters. They give you a lot of data when watching YouTube, also comparing your stats to other YouTube channels, and helped me a lot to gain more subscribers and more viewers on my channels. As I said, it's a free Chrome extension, but please use the link down below in the comments. And if you go for the paid version, type in BornaTubers to get a discount of 20%. And now let's get back to the video.
But I can also imagine that, let's say someone's a farmer listening to this, or an entrepreneur that wants to go into farming, they might be overwhelmed with everything that we just went through. Can you tell us how would it work on the simplest, like, day-to-day operational style? Like, would it be recording it by phone, or would it be writing it per email and sending it, or would it be like a special program or an app where you would upload it to the blockchain? Or what are thoughts there? Because you know that some of the bigger problems might be that you would have to educate a lot of people on something new, and everything where something new is introduced, there's friction there, because one type of person says, yay, new things, and the other type of person says, like, oh no, let's just stick to the old version where we don't have to do anything new, right? Can you speak a little bit about that, like how it gets implemented on a day-to-day basis?
So for farmers, what we have is an app. It's called FIeldNotes, and there's an entry menu, and they can decide what they are going to record that day. So if you're in a field and you've got like a stream and some hedgerows and some cattle, you just pick what it is that you're going to take a record of, and you use images, text, you can record your voice, and those notes, field notes, are recorded and timestamped and geolocated.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are available to you, only to you. You get to decide what to do with those.
Mm-hmm.
We're still in a development phase, so we're in this process of co-creating with farmers. What are those valuable records? So they have their own records. It's important for them. They can NFT their field notes at the end of the year. They can sell it, trade it, whatever. They could do that. And then that becomes like a public record of what they have done, which they personally can sell if they want to. Other aspects are if we can join together with other local farmers about localized hedgerow management, and if we can year on year gather that information, you can see that real-time information through time becomes far more valuable, not just to that single farmer as a participant, as a data recorder, as a field note taker or field worker, let's say, but it becomes really important whether to a food brand like the Co-op, Tipperary Co-op, which trades a lot in milk and dairy products, dried milk, cheese, that kind of stuff, for export. So the value of those kind of that deep transparency into the supply chain for the export market, where Irish dairy product is premium, for partly because it's a European product, but also because Irish dairy produce is recognized as very high quality.
Yeah.
So the value to that into the consumer market in distant markets is as yet not fully realized. We can't, we at the moment are not yet meeting, for example, consumer expectations in China around really deep transparency, food sourced in beef and that kind of thing. You can click on the link and look at the cows in a shed, you can real-time videos. Not in every case, but in many cases.
Yeah.
Agriculture 4.0 is about profound real-time transparency. The business models in China, through digital transformation, are much recognized to be much shorter than I think even in Europe we have kind of caught up to. At the beginning of the year, I would have said a sort of business model was 3 to 5 years. Now, 6 or 7 months later or 8 months later, I'm 3 years is probably quite long. So we are sticking with lightweight, ubiquitous computing as the interface. We're not waiting for broadband to roll out. We are looking at 5G, 4G, 5G, mobile data connectivity, very lightweight, very light wallets on mobile phones. Yeah. And we are iterating with farmers new types of data products that can be aggregated, modularized, aggregated, and hopefully at some point become so vital to the European food industry that we will be doing that for all farmers across Europe.
Awesome. Do you expect at one point to have a origin chain network coin that's on your own blockchain that kind of serves as an underlying level for this huge project?
That's not a massive ambition of ours. We have every respect for Ether and Bitcoin, for Algorand, for EOS, we don't need to create a new one. We recognize with the moves with the central banks creating their own digital currency that it's not important to us to create our own, and we would be creating a coin if we were going to go the full crypto crowdsourcing route. Absolutely. We don't have anything against it, but it's not that important to us right now. At the moment, the blockchains that we use are private and permissioned for a kind of workflow engine, and then we write to the public blockchain through Ethereum Besu. So we're writing to the public blockchain where certification or notarization happens. So we use a hybrid blockchain model, which is it essentially is the one that the European Blockchain Partnership through the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure has kind of, that's currently what it's recommending, is this Hyperledger Fabric and Ethereum Besu client, so that you get the best of both worlds. But this technology is emerging. We haven't come to the end. Nothing is set in stone. Yeah. Technology advances, and blockchain as a concept is there regardless of what hardware, what software it's written in, and interoperability of blockchains, or interoperability, the interface between on-chain and off-chain, how to secure and define the data model there, what should be on chain, what should be off chain. Obviously in Europe we're looking at things like GDPR and personal and private information. That stuff needs to be held off chain because you can run into difficulties. things can be hashed and obfuscated and all that kind of thing. But we're in the process of forming appropriate data models, which I mean, we already mentioned that farmers are entrepreneurs, but their place of work is often their home.
Yeah.
So how do you create this sort of attribute set or information that doesn't include these kind of information, you know, this, which is personal, private information. So, but it's also commercial information. Like a farmer is a business and he's registered, let's say, or she, with the company registration office. So it is publicly available information, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. It's a sweet cross section there, and I know that before we started the podcast, we were kind of chatting about could we see like social media platforms go more into the pathway of using blockchain as a something where users have more ownership rights of their data, or if they could get maybe rewarded for uploading their data and companies being able to use their data, because right now there's a huge gap between those two. Like a lot of superstar influencers get a lot of rewards for being on platforms, but most users actually don't. And I have a feeling that we already see the rise of a few of them where they're kind of rewarding users for just using the products. Like, have you heard of the Brave browser, for example?
Oh yeah, sure.
That's one of the examples where, and it's a very simple solution. I think that's why it works. You basically integrate it into just like a Chrome browser of Google or Internet Explorer, and you earn BAT token through surfing the web. It's a bit more complicated than that, but basically it emphasizes the idea that you as a user are not being rewarded for anything that you're doing on the internet, and that your actions actually do have value, and that now through blockchain we can actually track it and mathematically figure it out. Like, all right, you spent 10 hours online today, you should get this much as a reward for it, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more solutions like that, where social media and platforms try to implement it more.
There's some really interesting so there are solutions like that, and then, you know, there's more decentralized things like IPFS, interplanetary file system, which is like a foundational, like it's a infrastructure that supports the decentralized web and peer-to-peer sharing, and it's without getting into technical explanations, it's just something worth checking out for for your geeky types if they haven't discovered it already. I would say there are some really interesting moves being made, some of which I'm kind of familiar with, and many are in stealth mode, looking for the next scalable business move, I would say. So there's technical functionality there that will, you know, if you think of like an ad blocker, you know, where all the ads are sort of like stored somewhere else, that all of that information of your activity online, your social media activity, there's one I'm aware of in Cyprus, which is called Crowd. There's another, it's not so similar. It's kind of it's an international company called Tiki.com, and they're looking at, you know, paying users for signing up with them, and then they become like an agent or interface for the regular user, not an influencer user, just a user, tracking all that information, your user data and your information, and then being able to sell that. So you become so those middle people, Crowd or Tiki, become a negotiating factor with Google or with Facebook or with whatever. So there are some moves afoot. It's people in business used to say like, oh, is IBM or is Microsoft or IBM, are they your competitors? Because if they are, we're not going to invest in you. I mean, like if you're trying to take down Facebook, you have to be really careful how you share that message. If you're looking for VC funding, you're not going to take down Facebook with your Linux box in your bedroom. It's going to have to be like a big play. You're going to need users. You're going to need global market share. And how are you going to get there without funding, big funding? And if your message is, we're going to cut the legs off Facebook, who's going to,
a small
going to
percentage
fund that one, So, things are afoot. And things are changing all the time. And if we see that business models are, let's say a business model is like 18 months to 2 years to 3 years, that means that everything is in startup mode all the time, essentially. I watched The Social Network the other night. Apparently it's not very true, so I don't know Mark Zuckerberg, and I don't know any of the people in the film, so I have no way of knowing. But it's a good movie and it's a story well told. But that whole idea of what is this, that captures so much about startup land. I'm talking to farmers and I have an app and it's called FIeldNotes, and I'm trying it to things that people already know, but we're co-creating new data products with farmers. That's what we're doing. Exactly. We don't know yet what it can become, so some of those stories, like what is Facebook, what we don't know what this is, but we know it's cool, or we know it's wanted, or we know it's desirable, and all that stuff is really exciting. But it's really
it is. I feel that I always try to think back to someone who maybe stumbles upon this podcast for the first time and they're like just overwhelmed with everything that we just gone through and hasn't actually heard anything about anything that we just talked. I always like to put it down on day one level. And do Fiona maybe have some tips for someone who just discovered the blockchain space or heard about it from a friend? Where should they start? Like, it seems like there's a forest of information and apps and programs and websites. For someone who is interested to just diving into that space, what would you recommend would be some of the first steps to do or look into?
It always depends on who's asking, right? If you're a technical person, I would say one thing. I would say get your hands dirty, start messing around with smart contracts. I would say go to Ethereum, go to Bitcoin, start tooling around with new languages, Solidity, for example, writing smart contracts, get your hands dirty, see what you can do, because in true software fashion, with smart contracts, you're God. You can make anything happen. You can make terrible things happen. You can lose all your money, but it's fun. And software developers are creators at the end of the builders, are engineers, right? Builders. And I would always say, get stuck in, man or woman, and just go for it, because that's what I did. And that's the way that we learn, for sure, in technology.
What were the programming languages that you worked with?
In the beginning for blockchain?
But even before, when you were working on your projects beforehand.
So Java, great starter language. Anything object oriented. Golang, Python. I hate Haskell. Those kinds of things.
And which are the main one related to blockchain? Maybe. I know Solidity is for Ethereum, but Solidity other than that, I don't know any other one.
Well, Golang is good. Python is quite good. And then, so you're building front end and back end stuff, right? So if you're building infrastructure, you need something really solid language. Java is also good. I think HashNet is built on, or Hashgraph is built on Java. So they will be different, and you will collaborate. I mean, listen, I made my own blockchain once over a week. I would never try and make it commercially or anything, but yeah, I just did it. So just go at it, hack away, see what you can do. Always with software, what are you trying to do? What is the purpose? What is the process that you're managing? That's what we do in software. We're managing processes. So we've got the technical process, the messaging process, the internal, like how does, levers making machines communicate with each other. But like the real rationale is a business rationale, which tends to have more human related aspects to it. Like I want to be able to record on a blockchain the fact that I have ordered and put a deposit on a new pair of shoes from Borna, and when he gets my order and my deposit, that will trigger him sending them to me, and then when the shoes are halfway across the world or the country or whatever, that the rest of my payment triggers, and when they arrive, whatever the whole step of events that you have agreed is the way to do it. It's the purpose of securing the transaction. So you've got the business rationale, and then you've got the how to make it all happen underneath the hood. So increasingly, when we met through the GMIT program, I am communicating more and more about the innovation aspects, the new decentralized business models, how to parse an enterprise setting for identifying the real value add that having something like a blockchain or a DLT aspect or a layer or a new trust layer in existing
Talk a little bit about that.
models.
Talk a little bit about that, because I still feel that a lot of companies hear Bitcoin and blockchain and they're like, oh, internet money, and they don't take it seriously enough. Can you maybe go through some of the aspects that companies are regularly missing as a real value add that they could integrate into their own existing models already?
Okay, so I've already said that we don't use cryptocurrency. We didn't launch a new cryptocurrency ourselves. That's not what we're about. We are very interested in this idea of enterprise blockchain in a hybrid fashion. So we're using public blockchains, but also private blockchains. And if we say that our message is around decentralization and helping companies really embrace the internet, if you're not trading on the internet, do you need this?
Probably not.
Somebody's walking up to your farm gate buying your milk.
You're good.
Yep. You can trade eggs for it if you want. You don't need a blockchain, right? So we're talking about online digital transactions. A lot, and we've seen in the past couple of years, like especially the last year, where business had to move online really fast. Companies who were, let's say, hybrid, they had a little bit online, but they were mostly walk-in, all that massively changed around. And if you think that you're going back to your old business model, I'm not saying that your business is going to fail. I'm just saying you're missing this opportunity. There is a digital transformation opportunity here. Your customers are not only those who walk in the door. There is something else that can happen for you through, whether it's e-commerce or e-business or trading at a distance. There is something else there for you. And if you put on this new hat, you don't need to, you know what it is that you do in your business right now. But if you put that in a room for a moment and think, if I, with my company, with my resources, with my supply lines, with my understanding of this particular niche market, think about if I was starting today on the internet, what could I bring? What would be new? And where are the risks? Are the risks around if you have something really valuable like a heritage or organic or unique premium product, how can you share that, maintain that value in the internet business world? where people question the value. They don't trust the value because they can't see you in your shop anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're selling and trading something online, and that digital online experience, that customer experience when they first meet your website, this has got nothing to do with blockchain. When they first meet your website, when they first meet who you are as a business person online, what is the message? What are you trading? What is the service you provide? And part of that service is that experience. And trust is the bedrock of
the emotion,
the business experience anywhere, and always has been. Always has been. Exactly. So it's almost like we're going back to this idea of hospitality. You know, like everybody would show up to have dinner in the castle, and the landlord or whoever it was had to, you know, feed everybody and wine everybody and show hospitality, because that meant that you're showing who you are, so that later when you go to battle you can call on their sons, or whatever those deals are, right? But we're talking, that's the long game. That was the long game. Online, that moment, that experience, you have to understand that you will have to change your website frequently. It's not just once a year, and probably there's loads of people who don't change their website. Yeah. That experience is your customer experience online. That what you offer, that service, that product, everything about that becomes that valuable thing. And how do you protect yourself? How can you stop somebody else like copying your look or your feel or your product or that whole experience, by offering something more, something that is immutable, something that is assured in some way. And then you have that better experience with creating visibility and transparency. People want that. They can have, you know, people can check out your farm on Google Earth, right? And so they want to be able, not always, not, you know, they want that kind of transparency because they know it's available to them. And so moving online as a business person, you must take those extra steps, or you can, right? If you want to establish your business in this faster world, digital transformation, ubiquitous computing, fast, agile, iterating, hybrid products that are real world products with an added digital element, whether it's a digital twin. So you've got a digital element. We see this all the time in kids' toys. They buy a little Roblox toy, they scan something, they get a crazy hat that they can wear in their game. So this is 100% happening. The metaverse is here and it's real, and you know, women can shop to wear things online, and you know, really like phenomenal stuff. And when we see all of our things, all of our meetups on any of the platforms for communicating and that kind of thing, if we could, instead of just changing our background, we could change what we wore, like our avatars and that kind of. Look, this is a world absolutely that we are moving towards. This is already available and has a currency. We see it in fashion all the time. What's happening in this idea of decentralized fashion, augmented realities, the metaverse, really again led by gaming. What's happening in gaming and videos, and that culture, fandom, really swift iteration and changing languages, changing fashions, changing all this stuff. It's really exciting. And it is. I remember from your project that you presented, you were really interested in that idea of gamification and what it means. So if we get back to blockchain, some of the original thinkers about blockchain were using game theory as incentivization mechanisms for the rationale for creating consensus mechanisms in public blockchains. So how can we assure that the mining nodes won't be corrupted? And so this is the Byzantine fault tolerance, the Byzantine generals, you know, which of the ones have been bought off and which of the ones haven't. So if you have 51%, as long as 51% of your mining nodes are honest actors, you can withstand 49% of malicious actors.
Yeah.
So and when, you know, non-technical people or non-blockchain people hear that, they're like, oh my god, 49% of the network is trying to attack me. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that your system can withstand this 51% attack.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really this idea of game theory and using it to create logic pathways or defense mechanisms. It's really quite like chess, or it's, you know, many things come from this idea of game theory or military planning, that kind of stuff. And so it's really ancient, actually, which may be reassuring to some and not so interesting to others. But there is an assumption at the back of it that human beings are rational actors, and that's not true. Human beings aren't rational actors.
Most of the time we're super emotional, not rational.
Yeah. And
especially when it comes to like buying decisions, you're like, oh my God, this looks amazing. And it's not rational. It's not like, I need this week this type of clothes for that. It's like, this looks great, right? And then you just buy it. Or in games online, wow, look at this skin for my game avatar. I need that to look cool. Like that's not rational. That's like an emotional impulse that you get, and then you buy it just to have it. So I agree on that one. It's hard to sometimes make rational choices when you're very emotional about something.
Yeah. And we should just like acknowledge that, fully acknowledge it. Because originally, like, you know, this idea of like back to the farm to fork thing and how great of a pull factor is consumer behavior and consumer trends. And so if we provide visibility to the consumer, will that change consumer behavior? And what we found was, no, it will not.
It will not.
No, your consumers... You see, you're not paying your consumer to provide oversight. So providing, let's say, insight into the temperature, the nitrogen content of the grass in a field, and the temperature in the fridge, the refrigerated truck where the milk was transported. There are two things that we did. And we provided this for a product set in a shop, which was like a zero waste place. So it's like where consumers cared. We ran a trial for a week and let consumers test. They just scanned a QR code on their own phone and it could go to a website. And I'm telling you now, we could barely keep them in the conversation, let alone, you know, I eventually just stopped asking them to do it on their own phone and did it on my phone. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. Nobody wants to know the nitrogen content. The consumer doesn't want to know.
Yeah.
They don't know. Consumers, the food supply chain is a black box. And it's challenging for the consumer, even an informed vegan consumer, to come up against real visibility, because it's a massive context shift. They don't know where their food comes from. It just kind of shows up in the fridge or on the table and they eat it.
Yeah. They
just want to trust that somebody else is doing it. They don't want to take the role. And, you know, in the early days, let's say 2015, 2016, 2017, it's like blockchain's going to change somewhere else. And everybody's like, oh, you're able to see where your food comes from, or your diamonds come from, or your, you know, what our shoes come from. Absolutely anything that you want. People were saying we could do it. And offering mobile apps to consumers to say, look, we can show you this little story. The consumer does not care enough, doesn't care enough.
Yeah. Now that you say it, it kind of makes sense. And I do have a feeling that a lot of people, even if they could have the information on their fingertips, they wouldn't do it.
They do it once, Borna. They do it once. Oh, wow, that's really cool. It's like the China thing, like looking at the video of the cows, like in the shed. Oh, wow, there it is. I'm going to eat that next week. You know, like, but I would be surprised, and I'm open to being surprised, but I will be surprised if that consumer checks it every time they go in there.
No, probably.
Unless there's another push factor, like food safety. And in China, for example, amongst any other number of jurisdictions, food safety is of greater concern than we typically have it here. I'm not saying in Europe, and when I say here, I mean Europe, but in Europe, we are not as prone to the same degree of food safety hazards that are quite prevalent in other jurisdictions.
But as you said earlier, Europe feels a lot safer. I generally have a feeling that even though if I buy it in a supermarket without checking, that it won't be too bad, that it's not too scammy, that it went through some kind of trust and check process that's regulated by the government and the European Union to keep the food as good as possible, right?
Yeah, it's really highly regulated, which is laughed at in Asia and the US. But we do not have the same degree of food safety issues that they do in other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
For which I am grateful. Raising my 2 little healthy children. Touch wood.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about Blockchain Ireland and how is that project developing? Where is it going? What is it doing right now? And where can people maybe find some more information about that?
Yeah, so Blockchain Ireland is a signatory of the 2018 European Blockchain Partnership. So it's the industry network in Ireland, so, supporting, for blockchain interested parties. So there is a hybrid of, I would say, research, public administration, business people like myself, a lot of willing postgrads kind of interested in exploring the space, connecting with people and companies, and testing out their ideas. It's so I'm the chair of the startups group, and we what we decided to do at the beginning, that's a brand new group that started in February this year, and we decided to showcase what is really great about what's happening in the Irish blockchain startup scene, and present that alongside international players, international entrepreneurs, and then if there was a way that there might have been, let's say, an Irish researcher or a foreign researcher, an overseas researcher who was bringing kind of cutting edge research in the general topic area together, so that we could have a panel discussion. So they're relatively they're open meetings. They're scheduled around various different topics, which are decided from within our group. So the startups group, one of our first ones was trust on the internet, and we had Barry O'Connor from MyTiki. We had Sebastian van der Lands from WordProof in the Netherlands. They won a big European Blockchain for Good award. It was €1 million, I think. And so essentially what they were doing was creating a timestamp for original content published on the internet. Oh, cool. And so what they won their prize for was a specific project that they'd undertaken around trusted information around public health last summer. And so it's all about original information published by web publishers, so big websites, or it could be commercial or industry websites, and then how they are sharing that information. And they have since gone into a partnership with Yoast, which is an SEO company, and they have facilitated this deal so that anybody using timestamping, blockchain-based timestamping on their internet, on their website, will receive a higher ranking in SEO. So timestamping is becoming this valuable, trusted element of information, and showing that your information is not just like dated, like how long it hasn't changed, but that it's been updated or it's been validated or that kind of thing. So time stamped. It was really, really interesting, and I was keenly interested, obviously, from my point of view of internet website performance and that kind of thing. So, and then we had a researcher speaking as well, looking at anonymity and trust on the internet and what that means for communities and entrepreneurship and that kind of, and how it can be a push or a pull. Anonymity can be a push or a pull in creating, forming, accelerating trust relationships on the internet. So that was the first one that we did, and then another one was like crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. So that we're looking at cryptocurrency or looking at crypto assets as and crypto communities as crowdsourcing avenues for new businesses, and how to find new pathways to the marketplace. So there's a group of guys who were growing cannabis. So CBD, they were creating certified CBD oil in County Louth somewhere. So they created a whole farming process, including the certification module, and they took that and packaged it up, did their white paper and all the rest of it, and crowdfunded on using crypto networks, I would say.
Okay.
And now they have created this model where the whole farming model, they sell the seed, the farmers adopt their practices, they agree to this drone-based oversight, whirligig drones, and the company will purchase all of their product to create their certified CBD oil. So that closed chain has been sold and successfully fundraised with Gecko Governance, I think it was. So that idea of crowdfunding existing business models, so theirs was an existing business model without the intervention of those kind of networks. It's a kind of crypto partnership, I would say. The guys from Laos could never have gone to Asia, which is where this is now. So they have accelerated into a new marketplace, and they were thinking of licensing their model, and instead they went this other way. So that accelerated their market reach and facilitated their scaling up. It's really early stages for that company or that business. So I can't say how successful it's been, and I don't even know how involved the guys from Louth are anymore. But you can see, earlier we were talking about entrepreneurs now looking at what they're currently selling. Would they have gone a franchise way? Could they this idea of scaling up, right? So can you franchise it? Can you license it? Can you be eaten up by something bigger? What are your opportunities? How can you exit your value here? So if we're talking about something like that, looking at the internet and decentralization and cryptocurrency and its global crypto network, what are the opportunities for you there? With expanding your business model and bringing it to new markets. And of course, it's inherently risky. And of course, expanding in that way is quite probably outside the core competency of the original group. Like, they're not international farmers. But this is what's happening in the blockchain and DLT, where these partnerships are forming and new opportunities arise, and timeliness is a key factor. Risk appetite, timeliness, and really it's the sharp end of value, and how do we define value? For how long is it valuable? The crypto marketplace, or it's so volatile that entering the market at a certain time is inherently risky. Not entering is probably more risky. If this is the way you're going, not executing is a greater risk. So it's a very learning about those things. So that's not the way that we went. So for me as the chair in the startups group to be able to partner with some of the partner to host insight into some of these topic areas has been really, really valuable. Source Digital Assets down in Cork, Brian Elders is the CEO there. He's a partner in Black Manta, which is based out of Hong Kong. He's a very knowledgeable person. There's a bunch of other people. I mean, Pierce Ryan, who is a legal expert, and he's the chair of the legal group in Blockchain Ireland. He has a lot of experience as well at that interface between pre-regulated into the regulated digital space, digital currency space. There's an awful lot of local expertise and international expertise, and the way we took it in the startups group was to bring, this is what we're doing. We want to know more. We have a thirst to know more. We want to see what's happening elsewhere. So we took it as an opportunity to showcase what's happening in Ireland alongside sometimes international partners or what's happening internationally, and then grounding it with emerging research, because never forgetting that this technology is an emerging technology. The standards are only emerging. Interoperability standards, the premise and the expectation of cooperation are things that are emerging, particularly around governance and legal interoperability.
Yeah, I feel that so many things are new that this whole space kind of forces a huge number of people to, as I like to focus on this podcast, on personal development, to kind of go down this personal development route where you're literally required to spend like 100 hours of basically researching, reading, watching videos to kind of grasp everything that's going on. And it's pushing a lot of people to think in ways that they haven't thought before.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very good thing, actually, because oftentimes we get stuck in some kind of a routine where we think the same way and just repeat it day in, day out. And a lot of concepts in this whole blockchain market and related to cryptocurrencies and NFTs that we mentioned kind of bring in new things that kind of force you to think about like, oh, this is something new. This is something that we haven't seen before. This is a new way of doing something that we've done before. And it has this personal development element ingrained into a lot of projects where you literally have to go out of your comfort zone and dive into something new that you haven't experienced before in your life. What do you think about that idea? Do you think that blockchain is kind of forcing people to improve themselves and their thinking styles a little bit?
Well, I think it's one thing. Absolutely. I think it brings everybody closer to software development or to technical stuff, because that's what we have to do. Like if you're in internet working, if you're in internet security, if you're in building websites, if you're any of this stuff, you cannot sit still. The world is changing around you all the time. So we're just like, whether it's Twitter or Discord or it's not that I don't read academic papers, but academic papers are like a year too late. Like, we are on the internet, we are in chat rooms, we are learning about things as they're happening, and we have to, I'm not saying it's incident response, but I'm saying we are critically assessing the news that we are hearing or the updates that we're hearing or those experiences that are being shared. All the time. And that is the pace at which digital and online business communities form, businesses happen. That is the pace. And yes, it can be difficult. It can, it feels like the world is shifting all the time, but isn't it? Isn't it anyway?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, look,
I think
like
that's normal. Yeah.
But look at even the past year, like we see what like Brexit or what's happened, with lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. There's so much we can't predict and can't control, and we get on with it anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone, we got on with it anyway. We have to. That's to. True. And so technology is an enabler. It's a complication sometimes. It's an enabler, but we are empowered in that as users. explore a little bit, pick or choose. Don't blindly trust. It's the same as anything else. Don't blindly trust the guy who shows up at your front door and says he's going to change the roof.
Yeah,
You know, like, keep your wits about you. Technology is for us. It's for humans. We can, you know, it is in what you can decide to use. That is the way it is, you know. And so you use it the way you want. You ask it to do the things that you want, and you can build your business and create your business. There used to be this thing in the 1990s, like, oh, yeah, masters of the universe, software developers are, and now that feeling, because you can build anything. It mightn't work very well, but you can build anything, right? Yeah. It's the same in business. You can build your website. If anybody has done any of those like startup accelerator things or whatever, and you're like the full store website, and you know, don't take money off people, but tell them you'll sell them anything, and test the market and find if you can, you know, how quickly can you share things. If people are building and trying and testing and finding new ideas, like, just get on with it. If you've got a business idea, test it, validate it. Don't ask your mom. She's not your market.
Yeah.
You know, like, just get out into the unknown internet and test and surf and check it out, you know.
Funny story from a friend that started coding actually 2 years ago. I asked him why he decided now to start coding. He's like, the machines are coming. I want to learn how to talk to them.
They're here, man. They're here. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, you said it right. Probably some people won't support your ideas and some people won't agree with everything that you're doing. But I feel that that's kind of ingrained with everything that you do. Most of the time, people don't have the same vision as you do. And then they're like, why are you even doing this? You know, like, why would you even try? But I feel that you get a lot more out of trying. Even if you fail at the end, you get the experience of, oh, I did that. And as you said, I built a blockchain for myself just to try it out. Like, I don't know many people who can say that, you know, and you have that experience. And you can always say like, oh, that was a trial and error. I learned something, valuable experience. I improved my coding skills, you know, and you never know what might happen out of it 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Some of these information might be super valuable for your life.
But completely. And it comes back to that idea of, you know, it's not that I don't trust anybody, but like, if this idea is so simple and it is just algorithmically based and it's based on cryptography, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can. And I wanted to see if this is possible. Does this work? Oh, wow, it really does work. Oh my God, I made that. I can trust this process. And you know, in blockchain, in back-end servers, everything is, so much is available to us as open source, right? And we are trusting our communities. To trust our communities, I'm a firm believer in being part of that community. I'm an active participant in open source software, in open source standards. Where I can, I use open data to make things affordable in one sense, but also I don't like this idea of proprietariness. I think together we share, we own, we co-create. If we are to move into the future where everybody, like your friend, can talk to the computers, well, then it takes, you know, a technologist like me to work with the farmers, or it takes the, you know, Black Manta Capital or Gecko Governance to work with the farmers from Louth who have this neat certified CBD oil product, but the farming process is closed loop, and to accelerate that into a global, licensable, certified, on a blockchain, immutable, we can manage this entire process from Louth, looking through, you know, the videos, the drones, all of this stuff. They can validate it from a distance, and they're able to do that without partnering with the companies that can fund and have the those connections to make that happen, it's not going to happen. The farmer in Loud with this closed off, process isn't going to be able to make it. Not in that way. He might get a farmer in Cavan to model his process, but so it's all about scalability, global reach, opportunity, knowledge sharing. There's too much information in the world. One person cannot know everything. I cannot know everything there is to know about technology.
Of course.
There's business people who have strengths in one type of business cannot know and understand everything there is to know about the effect of decentralization on their business models. So they need to cooperate, whether it's somebody like me or somebody else, or in whatever jurisdiction or territory that they want to trade in. We need to be able to find the means of cooperating together, because time is running out. Not because we're all like getting old, but because business models are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. If you want to iterate your idea, you've got to get it out there. If you're going to get it out there fast, it has to already be interoperable. You're not going to be like IBM creating proprietary software and hardware and getting global reach in 15, 17 years. That's not business anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I see that a lot of new opportunities are popping up now, and it's the latest hot topic now in NFT land. And you mentioned that you come actually from arts, and I see that as a beautiful cross section of arts and technology, which actually didn't exist before, where you can put a piece of art online and have it in digital form and sell it as an NFT. And the fact that with smart contracts, you can program royalties into it, or certain conditions that happen when you buy it, or something that is attached to the real world with buying the NFT. So it's an amazing thing. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this whole space.
I think NFTs are great. I really do. I think it's really exciting seeing what people are doing. It's a little bit like the way we use notarizing onto the Ethereum blockchain, where we're creating a certificate or a set of attributes, or we're acknowledging something that has happened, that is complete, and we are publishing it onto the Ethereum blockchain. And this is NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, which are unique tokens. So the creators are defining something brand new, something totally new, unique. There's a couple of complicated aspects about it, about whether something is fungible or non-fungible, so you can fractionalize it or not fractionalize it. So what's happening is people are creating NFTs which are non-fungible, which are supposedly non-fractionalized, but they are selling them to...
Which basically means 1 out of 1, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it is a unique thing, but people are buying it jointly. So you could have a bunch of skateboarders buying a skateboarding NFT type thing, and they own it together. So they are fractionalizing something that was purpose-built to be not fractionalized, just in how their shared ownership is. So there's all these different things happening around digital assets and NFTs.
Yeah.
And then we see this route to market for... I would say they're digital entrepreneurs. Some of them are visual artists creating new types of work specifically for an online community. So when you see the work, it is distinctly made to some of the best work anyway. It's not just like a painting that someone's taken a photo of and then, launched on an NFT website. You can do that too. But I think the most significant and most impressive work is work that particularly addresses the digital world, the online world, the fandom, the gaming communities, whatever kind of online community there is. And there's some interesting stuff happening, like clout art, NFTing particularly successful tweets or Instagram posts, or
I heard about that, yeah.
So like incidents or events that can be captured through social media, and that NFTing that, and you can So if a social media post, like an Instagram post, I mean, if you follow a celebrity or something like that, you may have gotten a notification in your timeline. So you don't own it. It's just on your timeline.
Yeah.
Whereas if you create an NFT of something, it can be owned, and you can own something of that moment in a very digital expression of fandom. It's quite conceptual, but I think we can see it in sports, or the fact of you could have watched a football match or been there, and isn't it more impressive to have been there and you had that experience and you've saved the ticket and then you gave it to your son or something like that, or your daughter, whoever is like your football thing. So that football memorabilia, it becomes imbued with this sense of I was there, or I experienced that, or and then what does that mean in the online world when anybody can, let's say, go back, and as long as the the account is still there, it hasn't been blocked or whatever, you can still see it. But so this idea of ownership and authenticity and honoring a moment, or I mean, when we're talking about, we spoke earlier a little bit about digital twins, is Marcus Rashford, the player, separate to Marcus Rashford, the Twitter person, account owner, which may or may not be managed, right? And I don't mean that as saying anything. I think he's a very authentic person. But he's recently gone through an experience with the football match, and the backlash or reaction on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook. There's a massive backlash against him and his colleagues, which took on a sort of separate life of its own. And so any number of the aspects of that real life event in a match and the follow-up online, all connected, make that quite a significant event, I think, given that it was in England, and Priti Patel came out saying it was shocking, having issued some pretty challenging statements prior to that. So all these contradictory aspects are all in the mix. And so there's the game, there is the outcome of the game, there is a fan backlash, there are statements uttered across social media and shared across social media with further reactions, and any one of those can be considered valuable or important in a certain time if you're a football fan, right?
Yeah.
And then similarly, we could say the same about movies or the start of a war. If you think about the start of the Second World War, is it the Second World War? No, maybe it's the First World War. But the guy killed the king, right? First one. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm a coder. So yeah, this one thing happened in one city, and shocked the ripple effect of something like that. So any of those people in that crowd there that day could have tweeted something or made a record of something that becomes so valuable into the future, that can be acknowledged or can be a
remembered
value. Well, the thing about creating an NFT is that you're putting it in the marketplace and a value is assigned it, and that is either validated through sale or it's not. So you're monetizing things, you're commercializing events and moments, and so everything comes back to, in NFTs, it comes back to value, originality, uniqueness, value. Putting something in the marketplace, if you raise it to the NFT platform or try to sell it and nobody buys it.
I feel we'll get like a new way of collectors that just like go crazy about memorabilia or experiences that are on NFTs. I know that, as you said, like you had a great experience and you captured the moment in an NFT. I know that I was on a Metallica concert when they visited Zagreb, and I still have the ticket at home, but it's like pretty old and it's made out of paper, so it's kind of falling apart already, you know. But I still try to, like preserve it and keep it because it was a great memory for me. And NFTs are
I
now.
love that you're a Metallica fan. I love it.
Yeah, and
Great
I
band.
went with a friend. It was a great atmosphere. Like they have a song called "Ride the Lightning," and when they started playing it, it was rainy, cloudy, and lightning literally started. So it was the crowd was going
Wow.
crazy. But anyways, it was great to have an NFT version of the ticket where I can prove forever, where the paper doesn't fall apart, that I was on that concert, where I can show it to other people. And I think we can expect something like how on Instagram you have a whole collection of your pictures. I think we should expect an app where you have your wallet with all your NFTs inside, where people can gloss over everything that you own as an NFT. I think that will be a really cool thing. And then they'll see a Metallica concert ticket and be like, oh man, wow, you were at a Metallica concert. Well, I was there as well, And yeah.
I think you've gotten on to something there. I can really see that happening, like when we think about so punk has had a sort of few different revivals or like nostalgia experiences, and who was at what concert, and who got beaten up, and who saw what, and all that kind of thing.
Doesn't
and all
remember
of these...
anything.
yeah. So there's all that kind of stuff, and then there's it's part of culture, and people want to remember. And then we have this added aspect of, so the first concert that one of my kids went to was on the Roadblocks platform. He had never been to a concert before, and he went to the Lil Nas X concert in Roblox. I mean, man, it's just so weird. They're like excitingly bouncing up and down, and these like 10-year-olds. It's just so funny. But they would
Fiona,
totally love to have memorialized that.
Fiona, for anyone who doesn't have a small kid, can you explain what are roadblocks? What's an in-game concert?
Well, okay.
How all of that ties into everything that we talked about with the blockchain and how it generally works, because I feel that's like a huge metaverse, as you said, that people are missing on right now.
Yeah, well, okay. So I learn from my kids all the time, I have to say that. I already explained that I was really inspired by not just the quality of gaming, like the advances in gaming, the graphics, that experience and speed and gameplay, the satisfaction of gameplay, right? All of that. I was always really impressed by and inspired by that and drawn by that. And that is that in-game experience and that in-game community, the capacity for connectivity with other human beings and other players in the game was very exciting to me. I am a musician, so I've played a lot of live music, and that experience resonated with me as somebody who is a performer and connects with in that way with an audience as you play. And gaming is kind of like that. Yeah, it's very, very different, but it has something of that immersion, that and in the moment experience that really resonated with me, and I have been endlessly inspired by that without ever having worked in gaming, for a really, really long time. So when my own children got interested in gaming, my youngest started playing Roblox, and Roblox is not like Minecraft, which is a single game where many players can play or single players can play. It's kind of like a single world. Minecraft is like a single world, and you build things. Then there's Fortnite, which is a gaming world that loads of people can play, and there's dances and lots of community aspects which resonate, I think, with a wider and very commercialized community. And then there's Roblox, which started off as a platform for somewhat amateur builders to build games, and they tended to be for quite young players. So now we could say that Roblox is like a baby gaming platform, and you can build your own games like obstacle courses, or like the first game that everybody seems to play is Work at a Pizza Place. So in Work at a Pizza Place, you can either make pizzas, buy pizzas, or deliver pizzas. And you can have your own house. And you can like buy stuff with your pizza money and like put a new sofa in your house. And you can just, anyone can get in anyone's car. Like if there's a car outside, you can just get in it and go and deliver your pizza. So, but they love it, right?
Yeah.
And you can, so kids are learning about work ethic, and they are navigating things with maps. And it's somewhere between this idea of learning something about the world and total chaos, because you can walk into other people's houses and just like sit there on their sofa while they're watching the TV, communicate with them. Will you adopt me?
Hey, let's order a
chaos. I mean, it's just total chaos. And then like there's a load of other games that are like first-person shooter games, or car games, or flying games, or really complicated obstacle courses, and you can build your own games. You can get your friends to play them. You could, there's a lot of murder mysteries and horror stuff, and early versions of things like Among Us, I would say, were kind of there, like hunter things, and deception and betrayal and all the big stuff. And then Fortnite was the first platform where I saw there was a concert on it, and not too many months after that, but it was, I think they were still in school, so I don't think lockdown had happened. Okay. So Lil Nas X had a concert. So there was a game set up for this, and he sang 3 songs, I think. And so there were multiple servers. So the first launch was you signed up and you got assigned a server, you and your mates, let's say. And then you just waited until this, like you and your crazy little avatar that you put on your party hat and your whatever crazy stuff you have going on in your avatar. And then Lil Nas X sort of like arrives on the stage, and he seems to be like 60 feet tall. And all the little kids or people are like, and if you jump in this game, you could jump higher and higher. If you kept jumping up and down, you could like bounce up as high as his shoulders. And I think there's like 3 songs, and that was it. Good night now. And that was it. But it was super duper. They were so excited. They had never imagined going to something like that. They were really, really excited. So there's been a couple of other things. They haven't. There was that whole FOMO thing that they wanted to do and join, but I don't know if they've gone to another concert. I used to be far stricter about accompanying my son to a concert, but now that I've seen all the bouncing, it's like, you go for it, dude. Right? It's completely different,
and nobody can beat you up on a Roadblocks concert, unlike on a Metallica concert.
Yeah, but they can actually run through you. I mean, anyway. So you can play it on your mobile. You can play it on your PC. You can play it on your Switch. I think there's a whole load of different things that you can play it on. So that is, and they have in-game money called Robux, important for blockchain people. All of that stuff. So. I think we are really being led from gaming. I think that is where the ground rules of our new society are being forged and formed, are in the game worlds.
Yeah. Definitely a very creative space. I think that for older people, it's kind of hard to envision that because they didn't grow up with it. But all the new generations kind of grow up with it, and they understand Robux as like, oh, it's an in-game currency. It's the like digital version that represents some tradable value of objects, items, skins, stuff like that. When I tell that to my dad, he's like 70. He's like, what is this? Like why are people doing this? Like, why are you wasting money on some game? But what I think that will happen, which is already happening and has happened, is that people will live part of their lives in online communities, in virtual communities, in game communities, where they will trade digital goods and they will hold value. There are a lot of games being built now where you can earn cryptocurrencies, which are tradable for, let's call it quote unquote, real money, right? Because the definition now, the definition of what is real, it's kind of now shifting a little bit, right? And kids can earn money now by playing games. That's like something that 10 years ago, it didn't exist. Like nobody could make money online by playing a game. Well, rare people.
Unless you got paid for testing,
but
it's really, really interesting. I think so. Roblox is quite different to Fortnite or Minecraft in that new games come and go. So, like, we saw what happened with Among Us. Like, March 2020, the entire world seemed to be finding the traitor in their gang, And I haven't heard anybody talk about it in quite a while. I'm sure people are still playing it. I'm sure it's still a lot of fun. But that was like one game that had a moment. Whereas in Roblox, it is a platform with, like thousands of games, which come and go. And then there's types of games. And so you like obbies or obstacle courses, there will always be like your top 3 or your top 5, and they might change. And the game developers could be working on something new or working on extra levels or new features, improving it, but without the requirement of being like your competition being on the Play Store. Your competition is in this world, in Roblox. And it has a very distinct community, which is really quite young, and that is very unique. And that has watching how the kids have sort of grown and responded to that. It's even, do you remember when Twitter kind of went before ads to after ads? It was like really quite different now. My kids say that about Roblox. Like, it's not that the advertising is different, it's just the whole community. It's gotten so big that their experience has changed. And so that is happening in these online spaces and places as well. And that sense of trend or fad, which, kids always, even like before we had digital games, like, spring was always marbles, autumn was always conkers, seasonality and trend, and that was always a part of how children work. They get really super interested in something, and then they fall out of that and they fall into something else, and sometimes you kind of come back around to it. So Roblox is perfectly set up to respond to that, and to facilitate that. So it's really, I'm really going on to something here, but I have found it really enjoyable for my kids. And one of my kids got really interested in it and started developing games on it. And that he's only 10 now. So
amazing.
I think it's phenomenal, and he builds his games for his friends, and he creates these avatar suits, and he trades bits and pieces and all these different kind of things. And it's not so different to what we did as kids, with like making clothes or trading clothes or, accessorizing our t-shirts with like rips and pins, and it's really not so different. It is very much, and it's not to be feared. That's what I would say too. I know that I'm an outlier in terms of my embrace of technology or how I kind of came to it. I am an outlier, and I would say to my fellow parents or my other moms, don't be afraid of this stuff. This is Humans are humans. This is not setting out to exploit. This is to be enjoyed, and this is part of the new world context that our children are growing into, and that we as parents can enjoy it with them. You know, I got to go to the Lil Nas concert.
Fiona,
I would never have done that.
Me neither, probably. Do you like games in general? Like, do you play any games?
Only for analysis, only for assessing gameplay and that kind of thing. I'm not very good. my reflexes are not very good. So like,
And when you look
I enjoy the stories. I enjoy them because they're a little bit like movies. I enjoy the cultural aspects of them. I really enjoy watching my friends who love a game. I'll sit down and sort of join in Grand Theft Auto or something like that with people who can really play. I mean, I suck at it, but I enjoy their prowess. You know, things like that. So yes, I enjoy it, but I've never put the time in.
Yeah,
you know, I'm always doing something else, which is probably less enjoyable. But I mean, it's I like logic. I like logic puzzles. I still watch movies. I bet you game more than you watch movies these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think it satisfies something sort of similar. There's a lot of story and there's something so much more satisfying about gameplay, like really the authorship of gameplay.
Yeah,
which is so satisfying.
You know what I liked as what I really liked in some games, like I'll give an example. Even with GTA, like for example, like Assassin's Creed, you would play through a mission and then there's a cutscene with a short movie at the end, and you feel like you're a part of the movie, a part of the story, like you're one of the actors there. And with the while watching movies, I kind of have a feeling that like something's missing here where I'm kind of interacting there. And a lot of
I think a lot of gamers feel that a lot, you know, really. And I think that explains. You told me earlier that you hadn't watched Game of Thrones, and I think that's why, because it's quite inspired by that gaming experience. You know, there's larger than life evil characters, completely morally compromised, and but you can't make them move yourself, you know. And I think it's just not satisfying enough.
A lot of modern games that are kind of like GTA open up an option at the bottom where like I don't know, talk to that person, kill that person, run away, try to bribe them, or, you know, like give them an item. Then you have like 5 options, and based on the decision that you make, the game folds like into different varieties. So you and I play the same game, but we won't have the same outcomes and same things happen. And then it happened to me where I would talk to friends and be like, dude, so what did you do when you met that person in that town? It's like, oh, I betrayed them, I backstabbed them, you know, like, and I was like, oh, no, I joined an alliance with them. And you can see how the story unfolds in 2 different ways because they made 2 different decisions, which simulates real life a lot more than a movie where you watch a character and you're like, I would never have done that. Like, especially in horror movies, like there's a room and it's like, just don't go into that room.
Never go in.
Don't go into that room. Like, I would turn around and run it. Like, no. And a comedian makes fun of that. He's like, Billy, are you there? And it's like, you know, like a monster is like, Billy? and of course goes into the room, dies violently. And so yeah, I think that's a great element of games, and that's one of the most enjoyable things for me. I do it as a relaxation ritual where I, you know, like after the long day, I sit down for an hour and just play something, you know, and have fun. And one of the things that I always ask people at the kind of end of these podcasts is to kind of focus back inwards, because, you know, the whole podcast started as like the Uncle Gold podcast. Like you probably didn't have the rich uncle who taught you how to find the gold in life and explained everything to you and made life easier for you, right? But that's why you have the podcast where you listen to people who share their ideas and kind of help along by, you know, putting bricks together to kind of create your own path. So I always ask guests like, how do you find the gold in life?
I think it's a really great question. And I have always been like super uncompromising about following where my curiosity and passion took me. Like I traveled a lot. I worked in a lot of different ways and places, and I, you know, became an artist and a performer and worked in film and TV, reality TV, which sucks. Don't do that. I wasn't like in front of the camera. I was behind it. It's all just terrible. um, I and be fearless. You've got one life. You've got so much, and don't let things hold you back. Yeah, trust people, explore, be curious. Of course, bad things will happen for sure, but bad things will happen if you stay still. So that sort of cancels that out. And somebody told this to me once, and at the time I thought it was outrageous. He was a startup person in a VC, and he's like, stop worrying about the money. Stop worrying about the money, where it's going to come from. The money will come. I think the bit that he left unsaid is, or it won't. But the money will come. Worrying about it isn't going to make it come your way. You know, like, so everybody to if you're in a tech company, you have to scale. You can't just be like a tech company in Dublin. Like, that's not a thing. That's not a market. Mm-hmm. So you have to scale. You're going to have to form partnerships. You're going to have to network. You're going to have to prove your value. And if you can do that, the money will come. And so I guess it comes down to, if you're in startup land and you're trying to make a business, even if you are your business, you are your brand. Like, let's say you're, you know, trying to create a new pathway, particularly if you've moved country and you're trying to find it, like your way in that world. Be fearless, be authentic, be true, whatever the truth is that you know, where you want to be in your career, in the life that you want to lead, express that, live that life that you want to have, and people will understand that. We need people, we need our networks, and we need to build together. You can't exclude or exclude yourself, and you need to, like, be curious, be fearless, follow your instincts, do your research. I'm not saying I'm a completely intuitive person. I'm not. Like, I went to the Lil Nas X concert, you know. I don't just like, oh, it's all perfect. It's not. But like, check it out, build it, make your blockchain, see how it works, look under the hood, change your own wheels, go and live in the countryside, raise goats. If you want to be a farmer, do it. If you want to build technology for farmers, go grow something. See what is involved here, you know. Don't think that someone else is going to do things for you or hand things to you, particularly your golden uncle. But we've never been better placed to work where we are, but to be global, to connect with people like us, whether it's through games or online communities or online business networks. We've never been better placed to make those connections and forge those kind of alliances and make something happen.
Yeah.
And be generous with your intelligence. Your intelligence is you. It's what you've got. It's yeah, I don't know. It's taken me where I am. Mm-hmm. My intelligence, my curiosity, I would say. And my personality. There's not enough time in this world to be fake about things.
That's true.
Just be, you know, being authentic cuts through an awful lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
does that
Awesome.
is that
Some,
what
some,
does that
yeah,
help? I don't know.
some great advice there. I felt I struggled with authenticity in high school. I was kind of having trouble finding my place and fitting in. So I was always trying to
Yeah.
be part of every group, but I don't think that's the solution there. I think the solution
But
is to,
Borna, that's what high school is for.
yeah,
Like really,
exactly.
when we're that young, we don't know who we are.
Mm,
We're not tested really in the world, and we are made through the challenges that we accept and the challenges we decline. That's
exactly.
that's how we're made. It is like a video game,
Mm. You don't
And
get older, you level up.
yeah, I like that. I'm going to take that.
That's not mine. I also got it off the internet, but it's a great
Uh,
quote. Um,
yeah.
and in my mind, it like a lot of people don't have that what's called growth mindset, and this quote literally emphasizes that it doesn't matter if you just get older. The point is that you go higher in levels where you always learn something new, you develop your personality, your mindset, your social circle, your finances, your basically everything. And games have it implemented so well where like collect 100 items and you get another level, and bing, now you're level 2. Great, now next time you need 200. All right, how do I do that? Right, and then you do quests, you walk around and you basically find some kind of solution how to do it. That's why I told you that I was big on gamification, because I feel that a lot of times in real life we don't see the incentives or what is required to go to the next level, and we're kind of stumbling to figure it out. And games have it a lot more like maybe arranged.
Incremental. Yeah.
Yes, and it's easier to track, easier to see, because you have all the data in front of you and you can clearly see the reward. Like if I
Yeah.
tell you, if you get to level 10, you will get a shiny new Roadblocks shirt, right? And then you're like, oh, wow, I can already see it. And I know that I only need 10 more levels to get there, right? If somebody tells you, oh, you'll get a great personality after going through troubles in high school, you'll be like, I can't even visualize a great personality for myself. Like, why would I need that? Like, I just want to go out and have fun with my friends, So I feel
Yeah.
that we can get a lot of useful stuff from games where it's, like levelized.
I think there's one thing that so I really missed. Live music is obviously not allowed anymore, and I'm in two bands. One is like a folky blues band, and the other one is an orchestra, a string orchestra.
Oh,
So in one I play with 5 people, and the other one I play with 50 people,
nice.
and
What
I
element?
miss.
Which instrument do you play?
So in the bluesy band I play the drums, and in the orchestra I play violin, which
Beautiful.
I had never played before. It's in the shout out to St. Peter's School, St. Peter's National School in Phibsborough, where my children go, where up until very recently they have had both a children's orchestra for the children in the school, and they've also had a community orchestra. And the community, so that was I learnt violin from scratch when my children were young because they went to that school. And so now I've had the absolute privilege of even playing Metallica with my orchestra. I'm going to send you a link to our Metallica cover. And I have so much missed playing music with other people, because and in performance, because the difference between practice and performance is that element of time. There's no do-overs. The moment's coming and now it's here and now it's gone.
Yeah.
And that in video gaming as well, like you're coming up to the wall and you're either going to crash or you're not. It's like in the moment. And there's something that we learn about music and about ourselves in meeting the challenge of performance. And you see it in sports all the time as well. There is no do-over. There's only success, failure, mistake, or a new opportunity, like a fumble, a new opportunity, a pass, whatever.
Yeah.
And so all of that, like I can only say, play sports, don't stop. Yes, it's hard. Play music. I think the key to evolution is music. I mean, I can't even express in words how beyond language, the experience of playing music with other people is in front of an audience, like all together in that moment. It's beyond language and expression. The shared experience of that, and that is only human, surely.
Yeah.
You know, that playing instruments and singing. Maybe that's a little bit like birds and birdsong, the dawn chorus, but we don't know whether the dawn chorus is a musical exercise or whether it's literally hungry birds saying, I'm here, I'm still alive, don't come into my territory. Which, if we listen to Birdwatch Ireland, they'll say that's what it is, you know.
We'll bring one of them on the podcast and ask them how it actually works.
Oh yeah, do. Yeah, let me know. That and quails, I think. Quails communicate that way as well. But look,
crickets come to mind.
Crickets, yes.
You know,
why do they play that way? Why do they make that noise?
I'm not sure, but it feels like an orchestra of crickets playing at the same time.
Yeah. So, be a cricket. Keep playing.
Do it.
No excuses.
That's the moral of today's podcast. Be a cricket.
How did we end up here? I don't know.
I don't know, but I love it. Fiona, it was actually a great conversation. Tell me, for everyone who wants to follow you on social media, reach out and maybe learn more, where can they find you?
So my personal Twitter, Instagram is at Fidget Widget, and my company one is at Origin Chain. That's Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of them, Facebook, even.
And the YouTube channel as well.
On YouTube, yeah. And the Blockchain Ireland Startups content is on Blockchain Ireland Startups on YouTube, and there's a lot of really great conversations there with a lot of my Irish blockchain colleagues and our international guests.
Amazing. We'll leave all the links below in the show notes. For everyone who wants to follow, please follow the links. Fiona, this was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot. I think that's the best version of how learning should work, you know, like having fun while learning and learning while having fun. And thank you very much for taking the time to talk to the listeners. And yeah, you've been a great guest on the Uncle Gold podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Borna. It's really great to talk to you today.
Yeah. It was fun, and thanks everyone for listening or watching on the YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments. Me and Fiona are going to keep an eye open if there are any open questions. And I would like to hear what's something that you didn't know that you learned today, or something that we maybe didn't discuss that might be a good topic to discuss in the future. And thanks so much for being here, for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.